Welcome to Max Premieres. I know many of you say that today's movies aren't what they used to be, that everything is sequels and remakes, and well, truth is, you've got a point. Productions have changed quite a bit, but I work with what we have, and what I'm bringing you today is the best of what's out there right now. I'm not going to sell you smoke saying everything is incredible, but there are things worth your time. This month is loaded with horror, intense thrillers, dark comedies, and even a new version of Dracula. Before starting the video, it would help me tremendously if you took a moment to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. Thank you for your kind support. Number 20, Hellfire. A former Green Beret returns to his hometown in the southern United States, hoping to find peace. What he finds instead is that a local crime boss has taken control of everything, terrorizing the residents who have no way to defend themselves. When violence reaches his family, he decides enough is enough. Stephen Lang plays this veteran who unleashes hell on those who threatened his loved ones. Dolph Lundgren and Harvey Keitel round out a cast that screams 80s and 90s action in giant capital letters. Lang has shown in Avatar that he can still be intimidating despite the years, and here he gets the chance to shine in a leading role. It's straightforward, violent, and satisfying action. If you miss those movies where the hero takes on an entire army alone and comes out on top, this could be exactly what you're looking for. Well, we don't always need art, sometimes we just need to watch things explode. Fair warning, the trailer promises a lot, but we'll have to see if it delivers. Number 19, Twisted. A group of millennials discovers an easy way to make money, scamming apartment owners in New York using rental apps. The scheme works perfectly until they choose the wrong victim. The owner of the last apartment they try to scam turns out to have a much darker agenda than simply getting his property back, and what seemed like a victimless crime becomes a fight for survival. Lauren Lavera, the final girl from Terrifier, once again proves why she has become one of the queens of modern horror. Jimon Hounsou plays the apartment owner with that intimidating presence he's known for. The premise flips expectations about who the victim is and who the villain is in an interesting way. You start out thinking you know the story and end up somewhere completely different. If you like Don't Breathe and Ready or Not, this has that same DNA of thrillers where the hunters become the hunted. Well, we'll have to see if the execution lives up to the concept. Number 18, The Mortuary Assistant. Rebecca Owens has just landed a job as an assistant at a funeral home. The job is already disturbing enough on its own, preparing bodies for their funerals while dealing with her own complicated relationship with death. But one night, something changes. The bodies begin to move when they shouldn't, the lights flicker. And Rebecca realizes that a demonic entity has chosen this place as its new home. Willa Holland plays Rebecca in this adaptation of the video game of the same name that terrified players for hours. Paul Sparks rounds out the cast as her boss, the funeral home owner who knows more than he lets on. Few movies manage to create an atmosphere as oppressive as a morgue at night, and adding demonic possession on top of that is the perfect recipe for terror. If you played the video game, you already know what's coming. If you didn't, get ready for one of the most intense horror experiences of the month. Whew, this one is not for watching alone. Number 17, The Huntsman. An intensive care nurse finds herself caring for a comatose patient accused of murdering 6 women. While he remains unconscious, she starts investigating on her own, trying to understand what kind of person she has in front of her. The problem is that the more she discovers, the more she questions whether he's really guilty or if there's something else behind it all. Shawn Ashmore plays the man in a coma, which is an interesting acting challenge considering he spends most of the film not moving. Elizabeth Mitchell is the nurse whose curiosity could get her into serious trouble. The film is based on a novel by Judith Sanders that already had fans waiting for this adaptation. Psychological thriller is a difficult genre to do well, but when it works, it leaves you thinking for days. Well, the premise of caring for someone who could be a serial killer while he can't defend himself or threaten you is genuinely disturbing. The limited release suggests it's more of a niche film, perfect for those looking for something different. Number 16, Gale, Yellow Brick Road. Dorothy Gale's granddaughter discovers that Oz is not the magical place her grandmother described in her stories. Decades after that original adventure, the world behind the rainbow has become completely corrupted. What was once colorful and wonderful is now dark and twisted. and the remaining inhabitants struggle to survive in a crumbling kingdom. Chloe Crump plays this new protagonist who must face a version of Oz that no one would recognize. Karen Swan also appears in the cast of this dark reimagining of the classic. The film has a PG-13 rating, which means they're going to push the limits of terror without going to extremes. The release is like a one-night special event, so if you want to see it in theaters, you have to pay attention to the dates. This mix of nostalgia with horror is risky, but when it works, it creates something unique. If you always thought Oz had a dark side they never showed, this film finally explores it. Number 15. Love Me. Love Me. A student travels to Milan, and her life takes a complete turn when she finds herself trapped between two loves. On one hand, there's the perfect guy, the one everyone would expect her to choose. On the other, someone completely unexpected who makes her question everything she thought she knew about love. Mia Jenkins leads the cast alongside Pepe Barroso Silva and Luca Malucci in a love triangle that promises many emotional moments. The film is based on a Wattpad novel written by Stefania S. that accumulated over 23 million reads, so it already has a considerable fan base waiting for it. It's an Italian production, but filmed in English, which gives it that European touch without the language barrier. The Prime Video release just in time for Valentine's Day is no coincidence. If you like young adult romances with beautiful landscapes and impossible decisions, this is perfect to watch with someone special or alone with a pint of ice cream. Well, we don't judge either option. Number 14. Psycho Killer. The killer, known as the Satanic Butcher, terrorized the city for years, and when they finally caught him, everyone thought the nightmare was over. But for the police officer who lost her husband to this monster, peace never came. Now, with the killer behind bars, she has to face not only the trauma of what she lived through, but also the possibility that there's something darker behind it all. Georgina Campbell plays this shattered woman who seeks answers where no one else wants to look. The script comes from Andrew Kevin Walker, the same guy who wrote Say 7N, so you can imagine the tone. Whew, if you like thrillers that leave you with a knot in your stomach, this has everything to be one of those. Malcolm McDowell also appears in the cast, which is always a good sign when it comes to disturbing villains. The big question is whether they manage to maintain the tension throughout the film or if it stays all promise. We'll have to see it to know. Number 13. Kraken. A Norwegian marine biologist investigates strange phenomena in a remote fjord. Fish disappear, currents change without explanation, and local fishermen talk about something ancient moving in the depths. When she finally discovers what's causing all this, it's already too late to stop it. Sarah Karami plays this scientist who comes face to face with a mythological creature that should never have awakened. The film has a considerable budget for a Norwegian production, which promises visual effects worthy of a giant monster. The Kraken has always been one of the most fascinating creatures in Norse mythology, and it's surprising we haven't had more serious films about it. The tone seems to lean more toward horror and tension than mass destruction action, which could give an interesting twist to the kaiju genre. If you like sea monster movies with some science behind them, this has potential. Heads up, we'll have to see if the special effects live up to the creature they promised to show. Number 12. Whistle. A group of students finds an ancient Aztec whistle known as the Death Whistle. At first, it seems like just an archaeological curiosity, but when they blow it, something terrible is unleashed. The whistle has the power to invoke visions of future deaths, and once you use it, there's no way to escape what you saw. Daphne Keane leads the cast alongside Sophie Nélisse and Nick Frost, an interesting combination of young faces with a veteran of British humor. The direction is handled by Corin Hardy, the same one from The Nun, so he knows how to handle supernatural terror. The film mixes elements of Final Destination with the style of Talk to Me, creating something that feels familiar but with its own twist. The Aztec whistle is a detail that gives it a different cultural touch than the typical cursed object. Heads up, the concept sounds promising, but it all depends on how they execute the terror scenes. If they manage to make each death feel inevitable and terrifying, this could be one of the month's surprises. Number 11. Cold Storage. In a military base sealed for decades, something terrible has been waiting. A parasitic fungus that infects its victims and turns them into something unrecognizable finally finds a way to escape. Now, a group of people has to face this threat before it spreads to the rest of the world. Joe Keery, the Steve from Stranger Things, leads the cast alongside Liam Neeson and Georgina Campbell. The combination of horror with comedy is always risky, but when it works, it produces memorable films. The story is based on a novel by David Koepp, who in addition to writing has worked on scripts for Jurassic Park and Mission Impossible. That gives some credibility to the project in terms of narrative. The tone seems to go down the path of films like Slither or Tremors, where terror comes accompanied by moments of dark humor. If you like monster movies that don't take themselves too seriously but still manage to scare you, this could be exactly what you're looking for in February. Number 10, The Strangers, Chapter 3. Maya survived 2 nights of absolute terror, but the masked ones aren't done with her. This is the final chapter of the trilogy that began with the new generation of the Strangers, and everything indicates it will be the most brutal of all. Madeleine Petsch returns as Maya, the young woman who has proven to be more resilient than anyone expected. Richard Brake joins the cast, which is always a sign that things are going to get very dark. Gabriel Basso also appears, adding more familiar faces to this conclusion. Renny Harlin directs, bringing his experience in action films to the slasher genre. The premise of The Strangers has always been simple but effective. Normal people terrorized by killers for no apparent reason. That's what makes it so disturbing. Well, after 2 films of relentless pursuit, Maya will finally have to face her tormentors head-on. If you followed the trilogy from the beginning, this is the closure you were waiting for. Number 9. The Dreadful. In medieval England, Anne lives trapped in a tense relationship with her mother-in-law after her husband mysteriously disappears. The 2 women barely tolerate each other, but they have to live together in an isolated house where secrets seem to accumulate in every corner. Everything changes when a man from the past appears out of nowhere, and with him comes a curse that threatens to destroy them both. Sophie Turner and Kit Harington reunite after Game of Thrones, but this time in a completely different context. Marcia Gay Harden completes the trio as the mother-in-law, and, well, we already know she can do difficult characters like no one else. The film is based on a Shin Buddhist parable, the same one that inspired the 1964 Japanese film Onibaba. It's directed by Natasha Kermani, known for mixing horror with social commentary. The tone promises to be slow and atmospheric, the kind that builds terror little by little. If you're into gothic horror with intense performances, this could be a good option. Number 8. The Bluff. In the 19th century Caribbean, a woman tries to leave behind her past as a pirate to build a quiet life with her family. But as always happens in these stories, the past doesn't stay quiet. When ghosts from her old life return to threaten everything she's built, she has to decide whether to become who she was again or find another way to protect her own. Priyanka Chopra plays this ex-pirate with all the charisma that characterizes her, while Carl Urban and Timwara Morrison round out a cast that promises a lot of action. The Russo brothers produced the film, so the budget and scale are guaranteed. The 19th century Caribbean setting gives it a different touch from the typical pirate drama, and, well, having a female protagonist in this type of role is always refreshing. The direct release on Prime Video means you'll be able to watch it from home without problems. If you like pirate adventures with strong protagonists, this looks good. Number 7. Good Luck, Have Fun, Don't Die. A man appears from the future in a Los Angeles diner with an urgent mission: recruit a group of completely ordinary people to stop an artificial intelligence that is going to cause the apocalypse. The problem is that this group has no special skills at all. They're just regular folks who were in the wrong place at the right time. Or the right time in the wrong place, depending on how you look at it. Sam Rockwell leads this improvised team alongside Haley Lou Richardson, Juno Temple, and Zazie Beetz. Gore Verbinski directs, the same filmmaker behind Pirates of the Caribbean and Rango, so you already know the tone will be a strange mix of action and absurd humor. The movie has a 94% score on Rotten Tomatoes according to early reviews, which is pretty impressive. It looks like they managed to strike that tricky balance between comedy and science fiction without either one feeling forced. If you like movies where normal people have to save the world, this one is shaping up to be one of the most fun of the year. Number 6. Dracula. This new version of Dracula comes from Luc Besson and takes a different approach than what we're used to. Here, Prince Vladimir is not just a bloodthirsty monster, but a tormented man who has spent centuries searching for the reincarnation of his lost wife. Caleb Landry Jones plays the Count, with that disturbing style that comes so naturally to him, while Christoph Waltz appears as Van Helsing. The film already premiered in France in July of last year, so there are reviews available that describe it as a tragic love story wrapped in gothic horror. Zoe Blue completes the triangle as the woman who might be the reincarnation Dracula so desperately seeks. Besson has always had a very particular visual style, and, well, applied to the Dracula myth, it could result in something visually impressive. The question is whether the story manages to balance romance with terror without falling into cheesiness. For fans of literature's most famous vampire, this is a must-see in February. Number 5. Goat. A small goat dreams of playing professional rollerball, a sport dominated by animals much bigger and stronger than her. Everyone tells her it's impossible, that she simply doesn't have the size or skills to compete at that level. But as in every good sports movie, dreams aren't measured in centimeters. Caleb McLaughlin voices the protagonist, with Gabrielle Union, and none other than Steph Curry in supporting roles. Yes, Steph Curry himself, though he only lends his voice. The film comes from Sony Pictures Animation and is based on Funky Dunks, so it has that pedigree of quality animation. The message is the typical one of exceeding expectations and proving that heart matters more than physique, but, well, when it's well executed, that message never goes out of style. For family viewing, especially if you have kids who need that motivational push, the animation promises to be colorful and fun, perfect for a movie afternoon with the little ones at home. Number 4. Crime 101. A jewelry thief operates on California's Highway 101, executing perfect robberies that leave the police completely lost. On the other side is a detective obsessed with catching him, willing to cross any line to do it. Chris Hemsworth plays the thief with that charisma that makes him irresistible even when doing terrible things, while Mark Ruffalo is the detective who can't let him go. Halle Berry and Barry Keoghan round out a cast that, well, is hard to ignore. The film is based on a novel by Don Winslow, known for writing crime stories that feel real and dirty. With 2 hours and 20 minutes of runtime, it has plenty of space to develop that cat-and-mouse game we love so much in this type of film. The tone promises to be similar to Heat, that classic where the lines between hunter and prey become blurred. If you like heist thrillers with complex characters, this has all the ingredients to be one of the best of the month. Number 3. How to Make a Killing. Beckett Redfellow was born into an obscenely wealthy family, but was disinherited from birth. Now he works as an ordinary guy, though he never stopped believing that money belongs to him by right. The problem is, there are 7 relatives between him and a fortune of $28 billion and, well, let's say Beckett doesn't have much patience for waiting on natural inheritances. When a woman jokingly tells him to call her when he's killed them all, something clicks in his head. What starts as an innocent comment becomes a macabre plan to prune the family tree, one by one. Glenn Powell brings this anti-hero to life with the perfect charisma, so you almost root for him while he does terrible things. The film is inspired by the 1949 British classic Kind Hearts and Coronets, so if you like dark comedies with that sharp and elegant humor, this looks like an interesting bet. It takes 3rd place because A24 rarely fails when it bets on these types of projects, and Glenn Powell is at his best. Number 2. Wuthering Heights. The story of Heathcliff and Catherine returns to cinema in a new adaptation directed by Emerald Fennell, the same one from Promising Young Woman and Saltburn. Margot Robbie plays Catherine Earnshaw, that passionate and self-destructive woman we all know from Emily Bronte's novel. Jacob Elordi is Heathcliff, the orphan who arrives at Wuthering Heights and unleashes an obsession that will destroy everyone around him. Warner Brothers won the film rights in a bidding war against Netflix, paying $80 million versus the $150 the competition offered. That gives you an idea of how much they trust the project. Hong Chow also appears in the cast, adding more acting weight to a film already loaded with talent. 2nd place goes to this, because Fennell has a very particular style for showing toxic and obsessive relationships, and this story fits her like a glove. With 2 hours and 16 minutes of runtime, the film promises to take its time to develop this romantic tragedy as it deserves. Number 1. Scream 7. Sidney Prescott returns. After everything she lived through, she thought she could finally have peace, but now her daughter has become Ghostface's new target. Neve Campbell returns to the role that made her famous, and this time she has to protect not only her life but also her family's. Courtney Cox also returns as Gale Weathers because it wouldn't be Scream without her. Isabel May plays Sidney's daughter, adding new blood to a franchise that's almost 30 years old. Most importantly, Kevin Williamson, the original writer of the first film, now also directs. First place goes to this because for the first time we have Scream's creator with full control of the story. After the last installments that divided opinions, this promises to return to the roots of what made the saga great. Whew, if you're a fan of Sidney and have followed her story since '96, this is the moment you were waiting for. The Terror of Woodsboro returns in February and closes the month with the most anticipated release. And with that, we wrap up this rundown of February releases. As always, there's a little bit of everything. Horror for those who enjoy being scared, action for those craving adrenaline, and romance for anyone heading to the theater as a couple. If you like this video, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss our upcoming content. Let me know in the comments which of these movies caught your attention the most and which one you're planning to watch first. See you in the next video with more recommendations. See you soon!